We are starting now a new series of classes that will take us for a few weeks, and the title is really Tadmitam Shel Dmuyot HaTanach, which means how to look at biblical figures and how to look at biblical figures. We have our heroes, obviously in Tanakh, but sometimes those heroes are making mistakes, and we need to understand how should we approach their mistakes, and also how does it affect how you learn Tanakh. One of the most beautiful things that are taking place in Israel, which is definitely a new thing in Bichlal, in learning Tanakh, is that there is a revolution of Tanakh learning here in Israel. Tanakh we learn not through the Gemara, but we learn Tanakh through Tanakh. A. B. We see the Tanakh comes alive right here in Eretz Israel. You go to places, you can identify them, you can understand exactly what's going on. But that obviously also create a discussion, an interesting discussion between recent scholars of how to view Tanakh, how to view biblical figures, and how to approach their flaws, their deficiencies, their mistakes, and things like that. So I would like to start with something very extreme. We'll give it a little bit of history, but we will see how it basically set the bar, especially for more, let's call it, center to the right Judaism. And what do I mean by that? Rabbi Aaron Kotler, Zichrono Livracha, we know him from Lakewood, right? He's the one who really established Lakewood. He was born in 1892, passed away in 1962. He was in Russia and he moved to Artzot Habrit. He moved to the United States in 1941. Okay. Now, in this little article from the archives, so we have something very interesting. It says the following. He put it out. He put this article in a Yiddish newspaper in 1935. That's in Russia. Okay. So April 16, 1935, let's see what he says, and then we will try to figure out, obviously, why he was so upset. So he says the following. I was recently shown the last few issues of the newspaper Heint, or Heint. Heint means today, and I did a little research on this Yiddish newspaper. It was written in Yiddish, had a tremendous distribution, and it operated from 1908 to 1939. Now, I'm sure you all remember the what? In Russia. And it was a Yiddish newspaper. I look around, I'm sure you all remember life without iPhone, iPad, computers, and things like that. And people read newspapers. You know, people read newspapers, not only the news that they wanted to read, and not only the sports section. They read the newspaper from cover to cover, and that was what you do. Okay, you read newspapers and you read books when you had time, and obviously you read it in the language that you understand, which was, especially for Jews, Yiddish. So he was recently shown the last few issues of the newspaper Heint. How shocked I was to see the terrible blasphemies and the violation of the sanctity of our holy patriarchs and matriarchs that they contained. The laws of our holy Torah obligate me to react to this unheard of profanation of truth, chilul shem shamoim, and violation of the dignity of the Jewish nation. I thus feel compelled to depart from my usual practice and to issue the following public statement. Okay. Whoa. He read something.
What was his status then in Europe?
Okay. Very good question. I did a little bit of a research on that. He was also known, I think his father-in-law was also, I forgot his father-in-law's name, but he was also a major scholar in Russia. And he already had a little shtetl there, and I think a shul, and a kehillah, and a yeshiva. He was known. I don't think as known as he became when he came here. But he was known. And he definitely, if he wrote something in the newspaper and the newspaper put it there and he understood that he can affect public opinion, I guess he had some kind of a status. So what bothered him so much? Okay, so it's something about the sanctity of our forefathers, right? Okay, so The holy forefathers, who were the most luminous, loftiest, and purest personalities, I can't see anything, the holiest creatures, represent the foundation of eternal spiritual vitality, the wellsprings of chesed, and the full range of positive attributes for the entire world. For all of mankind, the avos are, in fact, held in the highest esteem by every nation on earth. The worst enemies of Jews did not dare tamper with their luminous and holy image. Okay, you can already hear that he was upset because I guess someone said something negative or portrayed the forefathers in a very negative way. And he says, even the Goyim don't do it. How dare you Jews do it? Now, pause. We are talking about 1935, Russia. Do we know? Well, obviously we do. A little bit of history, especially before communism. Already in the 18th century, what do we have? What kind of a movement? The Enlightenment. And the Enlightenment basically caused something that Chaim Nachman Bialik, for example, in the beginning of the 20th century, in one of his most famous poems, Kulam nasa aruach, kulam lakach haor. Rak ani, I think I quote it right, Rak ani nish'arti kan levadi. Which means, basically, the Enlightenment caused everyone to depart from the Beit Midrash. Everyone was gone by the wind. It's not only the movie, but really gone by the wind, gone by the light. And I am the only one who stayed in the Beit Midrash, in the dark, in like a little cave, because the light is where? Outside. And here in the Beit Midrash, with the Alte Teire, no, it's the Nebuchals, right? We sit here as the Nebuchals. Now, in addition, there was emancipation. Emancipation, which means basically Jews were able to go and to be admitted to colleges and to go to more of the general world and to start hiding their Jewish identity or to get rid, quote unquote, of their Jewish identity. All this nostalgia, okay? Know what is nostalgia? That everyone was a Shomer Torah mitzvot, and everyone had a beard, and everyone was a shoichet and a rabbi and a moel and a dayan. It's not true. Sorry to burst your bubble. There were many, but most of them probably were not. Now, yes, there was always a sense of Europe and a sense of the shtetl and all of it, but in terms of Shmirat Torah mitzvot and to be what we call being Orthodox, that was not exactly the case. Also in the 18th century, we know that Judaism experienced a revolution in terms of Reform, Conservative, and Orthodox. Orthodox, by the way, just like as a side note, Rabbi Shimshon Raphael Hirsch was probably the first one to coin this idea, and he didn't like it. Because what does it mean, Orthodox? Orthodox means what? The only true way. And Rabbi Shimshon Raphael Hirsch, when you read his writings, he understands that there are many ways to understand Torah, but there is one halacha. So he had to coin this idea of being Orthodox. So we have Reform, Conservative, and Orthodox, and obviously changes in Judaism that happens, especially in the Reform and the Conservative movements. Okay. In addition, we have the development of what we call Chochmat Israel. What does it mean, Chochmat Israel? Some in the Orthodox circles, and some were not in the Orthodox circles, that basically are doing what we call today, in the 21st century, biblical criticism. What does it mean, biblical criticism? You look at Tanakh and you see issues, and you ask yourself, what's going on here? So some of it was already addressed by the Talmud, and answers were given, but not all the answers are satisfying. And some people did not like those answers, and they start developing an alternative interpretation to contradictions that you can find in the Torah. I'll give you two. Was Moshe the most humble person in the Torah or in the world? Yes. Isn't that very interesting that he writes it on himself? It says in the Torah, "Vaish Moshe anav meod mikol ha'adam asher al pnei ha'adama." And Moshe was the most humble person on earth, says Moshe. Okay, so obviously we have a little problem. Now Hashem said it, but who wrote it? Okay, Now, the last 8 psukim in the Torah that describes Moshe's funeral and the eulogies and the amount of days that they mourn for Moshe Rabbeinu. Now, Yeshua wrote it. Be careful, you are recorded, right? We believe that Moshe wrote the entire Torah, me'alef ve'ad taf, right, from Bereshit until Leinei Kol Israel. So what do we do with the last 8 psukim? By the way, it's not my question. The Gemara in Baba Batra asked the question. The Gemara gives 2 answers, which both of them creates problems. One, if Yeshua wrote 8 psukim, who told me that Yeshua didn't write other psukim? B, it says bedema. That maybe Moshe wrote it, but bedema. What does it mean, bedema? So he wrote it with tears. So you still, how can you write, even with tears, how can you write about your own funeral? Now, some people do it, by the way. You know, they pretend to be dead to hear what is being said about them, and then they come back to life. But the idea is, Moshe is not like that, obviously. So we have issues with many things. Also, you have, when you compare Sefer Dvarim to all the other books, you definitely see different in language. And also you ask yourself, okay, why some of the mitzvot are being repeated? All the mefarshim are dealing with it. So that's the list of the problems that we have, okay? And then part of this biblical criticism, you have to deal with deficiencies of our forefathers and other biblical figures. One of the most famous ones is obviously David and Bathsheba. Okay, one of the things that obviously interests so many people and so many commentators, because it's a difficult thing, a difficult phenomena, a difficult event that took place, that it's very hard to explain. Now I know the Talmud tries really, really to try to solve the issue. But if you are convinced, wonderful. If you are not convinced, that's a problem. I'll give you another one. The Talmud says, Kol haomer David chata eino ela to'eh. If someone says that David committed a sin, he's to'eh. He's mistaken, or he made a mistake. Now the problem is that the Tanakh itself says that after Natan HaNavi came to David HaMelech and told him, what did you do? And he gave him this kivsat harash, the parable about this little sheep. David HaMelech says what? Chatati. So now you want to tell me that when David says chatati, he didn't really mean to say chatati? I don't understand. Okay, so you got the message. Now, the problem is, and this is something very, very important, is that now you have few ways to deal with it. One way, you're just going to totally ignore all the deficiencies. You're going to put them on a pedestal. You're going to say you don't understand them. Even when it says chatati, that doesn't mean really chatati, and therefore they are holy, don't touch them, right? Problem, if they are so holy and they are saints, basically what can I learn from them? I am not a saint. I'm not that holy. So basically, I can't learn anything from them. Okay. The other extreme is, they are like me, like you, no problem. They are exactly the same people, and therefore they have deficiencies. I think that's a little strange to say that they are like you and me, totally like you and me, because with all due respect, their names are in the Tanakh, not ours. And then you have, we'll call it the third way, to say that they are very holy, but they still have deficiencies, and we can learn from it. And despite the deficiencies, they were chosen to be A, B, and C, which makes it difficult. Because if they committed those sins, how come that they are still what? Still kept their positions or became whatever leaders. Okay. Now, in addition to it, there is what I will call hashkafa. And what do I mean by hashkafa? When you start talking about biblical figures in what we will say begova ha'einaim, that's what is 21st century expression, like peers. How do you transmit, especially to children, the tmimut, to be a little bit more naivete, or more completeness or wholesomeness of those people? You talk to a child who is 6, 7 years old, and you tell him about Avram, but I want you to know, Avram was a horrible person when the way he treated Ishmael, or he made a tremendous mistake by leaving Israel, but he was a great person. A 7-year-old cannot comprehend the gray. The problem is, if you ingrain in him that he was holy, 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 when he reached age 16, and he goes online and he sees an article that says that Abraham was A, B, and C, he has no tools to do what? To handle the information. Do you know how many religious yeshiva boys and seminar girls or whatever went to university and went to a Tanakh class in a university, and then they were shocked? So, educationally, we also have an issue. How do you balance the what? On one hand, to be analytical and to try to understand and analyze things logically, at the same time, to understand that you're talking about biblical figures and maybe they have somewhat of a different status or maybe a different look that you need to look at. So those are the issues. And why did I give you all this introduction? Because 1935 in Russia, leave alone Bolshevism, communism, whatever it was in 1935, the problem is that they are feel threatened by התבוללות. What is התבוללות? Assimilation. We have the Enlightenment that already started before. We have חוכמת ישראל, and then you have what? השכלה. The what? Hostility of the Russians. And then you have Yiddish newspapers that infiltrating every Jewish home, and they have an essay about Avram, Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, Leah, criticizing them. So it's not only the Jews, the non-Jews telling me that, wow, that I crucified Jesus and I'm a horrible person. Now even my heroes that I try in the Cheder to teach my children that, wow, that they were holy and we are a holy nation. Now the Yiddish newspaper gets to the house and Avram is not that holy. And Sarah is not that holy. So Rav Kotler understands that what? He needs to basically say a statement in public in order to try to influence, and we'll see what he's asking people to do, to try to defend Judaism. That's what he feels. That's why I gave you this introduction. Okay. How deep the shame and how profound the anguish then that this despicable blasphemy should appear in a Yiddish so-called nationalistic paper. Worse yet is the shame that this very newspaper, which compromises every principle for financial gain, did not realize that its violation of the dignity of the avos, should I say, would arouse protest from its broadest circle of readers. This protest, besides the curtailing this outrage, also serves as a source of encouragement to the religious community. Did the publishers really expect people to ignore each defamation of the Creator, His Torah, and the Holy Patriarchs who form the very basis for the continued experience of existence, of Klal Israel? Maybe I should take off my glasses. The worst victims of this betrayal are our youth, for whom these stories are an insidious venom which can poison their entire way of thinking. Do you see where it's coming from? Especially in this era of widespread ignorance. Yeah, the children, some of them don't go to a Jewish day school. They basically get the newspaper, and on Friday they read the newspaper about the Parsha. The problem is that the article says that the Avot, the Imaot are not exactly great. So their only education and their only access for any Jewish information is from that newspaper, and that newspaper basically poisoned their brain.
Do we know what was in the article? What was in the article? What he's referring to?
Yeah, basically Chokhmat Israel, what they call biblical criticism, and we'll see in a minute.
Okay, what they said against the Avot.
He's not explicitly saying that, no, but if you want, I think I could find some Gilionot of the Hind, and you can find it, I think, online, and to see, I mean, I can just imagine what they said. When so many young people are not even vaguely familiar with that, the Chumash writes about the Holy Forefathers, and certainly do not know what Chazal say about them, that will instead learn about the patriarchs from the hind perspective, culled from the Chumash motives, which are permeated with cynical ridicule and the spirit of Sizatskia. That was the Jewish Communist division. So you can understand that, like every other newspaper, one of the most important things for a newspaper is what? Money and circulation. And they get publicity from wherever they get the money, and they write whatever they want to write. So he says, Lo ya'aleh velo yavo. Every Jew possessing a spark of faith, to whom the honor of Klal Israel is dear, is thus forbidden to allow such heretical writings, which the Rambam deems worse than idolatry, to enter his home. So, as not to transgress, you shall not bring anything despicable into your home. The what? What does that mean?
So just like Ben and Jerry's, when that came out,
Uh-huh.
Jews stopped buying
Ah,
Ben
okay.
and Jerry's.
Yeah.
It's the pocketbook.
Okay, very good. Basically, cherem. Cherem. Cherem, you put this newspaper in cherem, excommunication, you ban it, you don't bring it to the house, they will learn that we don't buy their newspapers.
New York Times.
CNN, the whole world.
It must be emphasized. The Torah law considers whoever reads this newspaper culpable as an accessory to a transgression, for this travesty is written and published with the reader in mind. Every Jew must spare his household from the destructive influence of such literature. Moreover, if we continue to tolerate such falsehoods in our homes, how can we continue to beseech God to answer our prayers in the merit of the very same patriarchs and matriarchs that these calumnies malign? Understandably, it is impossible to fully convey even one of the merit facets of this subject in these confines of a letter. This inadequacy on our part, however, does not give us license to remain completely silent either. I appeal to the Rabbonim, Giyonim, Talmidei Chachomim, as well as to the ordinary God-fearing Jews to protest this sacrilege as strongly as possible. Who knows but what our previous silence on other matters of outrage caused this present outrage to take place. May Hashem heal the breaches within the people and rebuild the spiritual ruins. Okay. By the way, is a Rosh Metivtza, someone. So back then he was already Rosh Yeshiva of Kelts who writes these words and signs, blah blah blah. Okay. Yes.
I remember studying literature, and the professor told us, don't deify the printed page. In other words, just because people write something or publish something, it doesn't mean it's true.
Right. Okay. Oops. Never mind. I'll drink it all. So don't worry about it. It's fine. Don't worry about it. Thank you. So, okay. So, I think you got the point. I don't think Rabbi Kotler would like to read this Hind newspaper, and that's before he went to the States in 1941. That was still in Russia. Okay. Now, basically, he's against obviously this newspaper, but he's also against what? Any criticism on the Avot and the Imaot that will ruin the image, this holy image that we try to what? To build. Okay. Now, before we try to challenge what he said, we fully understand the reason. The question is, does the reason justify what he's trying to do? Or there is an alternative way to do it. What do I mean by that? I understand you want to protect the holy, pure nefashot of your youth. The question is that the right way? No. By ghettoizing them in a way and by not allowing any other opinions to infiltrate the house, because maybe there is another way, which is A, write other articles in the newspaper, basically confronting it. Because here, it doesn't say, okay, you know what, I will show you how to analyze Avram's deficiency in a different way. He just say, no, there is no deficiency. Okay, there is no criticism. And this is obviously a way that we already in the 21st century see how it evolved. Okay, now I understand the problem, but the question is that the only way to deal with it? Okay, now, okay, so what I would like you to do is let's learn Ramban. I don't think we can suspect the Ramban to be a pluralist, liberalist, leftist, I don't know, whatever you want to call anyone who we think or we want to coin someone who is against Torah, chas v'shalom. Ramban had nothing to do with everything that we said. He lived in the 13th century. He has no clue who is Rabbi Aaron Kotler. Okay, he has no clue who are the communists. Okay, he is just a parshan of the Torah. Okay, so take a look at one of the psukim, and we'll see something interesting. ויהי רעב בארץ, בראשית פרק י"ב, פרשת לך לך. ויהי רעב בארץ, there was a famine in the land, וירד אברהם מצרימה לגור שם, כי כבד הרעב בארץ. And Abraham went down to Mitzrayim to dwell there. Why? Because the famine was great in the land of Israel. It was too heavy, he couldn't survive. ויהי כאשר הקריב לבוא מצרימה, and when he approached מצרים, ויאמר אל שרה אשתו, and he says to his wife שרה, הננה ידעתי כי אישה יפת מראה. Page 2. Page 2, at the top of page 2. Exactly. והיה כי יראו אותך המצרים, ואמרו אשתו זאת, והרגו אותי ואותך יחיו. So when the Egyptians will see us, they will say, that's his wife, so let's kill him, and they will take you. אמרי נא אחותי את, למען ייטב לי בעבורך, וחייתה נפשי בגללך. So please say that you are my sister, so I will get some gifts, and I will also what? Live. Okay. Avraham Avinu is making two decisions. One, to leave Israel and to go to Mitzrayim because of the famine. And the second, to endanger his wife. To ask her to lie and to endanger her. Right? I think that we can all agree that the first decision is more tolerable. There is famine in the land. Hashem told him, go to the land of Israel, right? And I'll give you, and I'll give you, and I'll give you. He comes to Eretz Israel, and what do we have? Famine. So what do you want from him? So he goes down to Mitzrayim, there is food. The second one, we not happy. How can you put your wife in such danger? I mean, go somewhere else there is food. I'm not sure that there was famine all over the Middle East besides Mitzrayim. And even if there was, okay, maybe you should go to Mitzrayim, tell Sarah, wait here. It's not that far. Come there, go buy food, bring food, and daven to Hashem. I don't know. There are other ways. So the first decision, kaha kaha. The second decision, we are like, what are you doing? Take a look at the Ramban. ויהי רעב בארץ. הנה אברהם ירד למצרים מפני הרעב, לגור שם, להחיות נפשו בימי הבצורת. So Avraham went down to Mitzrayim because of the famine, in order to survive. והמצרים עשקו אותו חינם, and the Egyptians basically took advantage of him, לקחת את אשתו, to take his wife, and הקדוש ברוך הוא נקם נקמתם בנגעים גדולים, and הקדוש ברוך הוא punished them with tremendous plagues, והוציאו משם במקנה, בכסף ובזהב, וגם ציווה עליו פרעה אנשים לשלחם. So after that Hashem took him out from Mitzrayim with tremendous flock and gold and silver, and also he commanded Paro to send them out. I will skip a bit. The Ramban is saying that because the Ramban coined this expression, Ma'aseh Avot, Siman Labanim, whatever happened to their forefathers will happen to us. So same thing with Avram. Avram went down to Mitzrayim, he was abused, but then Hashem took him out and gave him gifts and all of that. The Jewish people will have the same fate, which means they will go to Mitzrayim, they will be abused, then Hashem will take them out, b'yad chazaka, b'zoa netuya, v'berechush gadol. Wonderful. Until now, הכול בסדר. Go to the same paragraph, the fourth line from the end of the paragraph. Veda. You see Veda? Okay. Veda. כי אברהם אבינו חטא חטא גדול בשגגה. שהביא אשתו הצדקת במכשול עוון, מפני פחדו פן יהרגו. You should know that Avraham Avinu committed a sin, בשגגה, not intentionally, but בשגגה. And what was the sin? That he brought his אשתו הצדקת, he brought his pious wife, במכשול עוון. To confront what? A transgression, because Paro could be with her. Because of what? Because he was afraid to die. A. And then what? והיה לו לבטוח בשם שיציל אותו ואת אשתו ואת כל אשר לו. כי יש באלוקים כוח לעזור ולהציל. Meaning? He should have trusted Hashem, and when he goes down to Mitzrayim, he should say what? She is my wife. But he knows that they will kill him and take her. B'tach b'Hashem. Don't nod your head. I don't like what he has to say. Okay, not because of the chet, just because of the expectation. But in a minute. גם יציאתו מן הארץ. Also, that he left Israel, שנצטווה עליה בתחילה מפני הרעב, עוון אשר חטא. So, leaving Israel because of the famine was also a sin. Why? Because Hashem told him, go to the land of Israel. כי האלוקים ברעב יפדנו ממוות. Because if Hashem wants, he will save him from the famine. ועל המעשה הזה נגזר על זרוע הגלות בארץ מצרים ביד פרעה. And because of that, because of those sins, his descendants were punished to be slaves in Mitzrayim. Okay. At the beginning, when I made these source sheets, I thought maybe not to put his name, the Ramban, and just to ask you, who do you think wrote it? And it will be fascinating, probably, to hear your answers.
Sounds like it's from behind.
Very good. So, Rabbi Aaron Kotler, what would he say about the Ramban? Now, Rabbi Aaron Kotler knew the Ramban. Believe me, he knew the Ramban. But he still said what he said. So first and foremost, what I want us to remember is that, and we spoke about it so many years, I don't know how many years I'm teaching at the OU, probably since maybe 2016, is that I try always to show you the link, the connection, the influence, the impact of the era, the years, the place that you live in, and what you write. There is a correlation. I'm not saying that that's the decisive factor or the only factor, but there is definitely influence. And Rabbi Aaron Kotler could learn the Ramban on Erev Shabbat, Parashat Lech Lecha, and still write whatever he wrote in the Hind. Why? Because he felt he needs to ignore the Ramban and definitely not to publicize to everyone that what? That Avram Avinu chata chet gadol, bishgaga. Because people will misunderstand it. And people will basically have an image of Avram as just a regular person instead of what? Of this holy forefather. Okay? So I understand Rabbi Aaron Kotler's perspective. I personally not sure that this is the only way to deal with it. But now let's talk about the Ramban. The Ramban, 13th century, well, no, that's easy, Spain. And the Ramban learned Chumash, and he wrote an interpretation. The basis for his interpretation, he says in his Akdama, he looked at Rashi, he looked at the Ibn Ezra, and other things, but Rashi and Ibn Ezra were the go-to commentators that he would go and analyze them as well. And basically, the Ramban's point of view is what? That Avram committed a sin by doing what? What's the common denominator between the two decisions that Avraham did? Didn't have enough bitachon b'Hashem, right? Didn't have enough faith or trust in God. Now, I want to ask you a question. Hashem says to Avraham, go to the land of Israel. And Eschale Goy Gadol, I'll make for you a great nation, blah, 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 all those great things. He comes to Eretz Israel, and the first thing he experiences is what? A famine. Hashem does not talk to him. There is zero communication back then. From the minute that Hashem told him, Lech Lecha, until he comes back to the land of Israel, there's no communication that we know of. I mean, I know the Torah does not say anything. So now you have a man with a woman, with his wife. You have Lot, and you have some like little bit of an entourage, and there is famine in the land of Israel. What would you like Abraham to do? I don't understand. To daven to Hashem and to ask him for food? If Hashem wants to save him, Hashem should send him what? Little manna, right? A package, right? A communication to tell him what to do. But I don't understand what the Ramban thinks, that if I face a challenge, I shouldn't do anything to overcome the challenge. I need to wait for God to save me. So obviously we have an issue of expectation. How much expectation, divine expectations you have for me not to do anything and to rely on you, meaning Hashem. And the Ramban expecting Avraham to do it. That's A. B. He says that he also, when he went down to Mitzrayim, even though it was a known thing that they will take the wife and kill the husband, he should say what? Yeah, she's my wife, not my sister. No, he should have said she's my wife and not to say she's my sister. Now, by the way, why to say she's my sister? Because the idea in the ancient times was like that. If she was beautiful or whatever, and they think that they can bring her to the king, they will pay the brother to give his sister for marriage, and then they will bring it to the king to find favor in the eyes of the king, or to get money. Okay? So now the thing is that the Ramban says that Avram made a mistake. Again, he again had to trust God. To trust God in what? I don't understand. If the norm, the social norm was, in Egypt, was known, who is she? Sister or wife? If he says wife, what would you think will happen immediately? Boom, and take the wife. So,
But if she's a sister, won't they take her as well? Because
yeah, but they will not kill him, and he will get money.
Okay, and they'll abuse Sarah.
No, she will get married with Paro.
Very nice. That's wonderful.
I didn't say that the choice is so great, but why to lie and why to endanger her? For what?
Well, to save his life.
Oh, to save his life. That's very nice. God would save your life.
But either way she'll be taken.
So, that was the point. So the thing is,
Why not just leave her?
in Eretz Israel, very good. That's what I didn't understand, why Avram just didn't leave her there. Now, you could say that Avram was afraid to leave her there, even for 3-4 days, no man to protect her. There are the Hittites, the Canaanites, the Jebusites, whatever the site. And basically, they are also dangerous. Maybe not as dangerous as the Egyptians, but to leave a woman like that without any protection, maybe he was afraid. Maybe. That's the only thing I'm thinking about. The what?
There's no food.
And there is no food. No. But I'm saying just to go for 3 days and to come back. And I think you can make it in 3 days. Okay, so the issue is,
The Canaanites may have been worse. In Mitzrayim, they were bringing them to the king to get married to the king. In the Canaanites, the other ones, they could have just abused her without getting
it might be, yeah, might be. So I'm saying that the option to, he suggested, I don't know your name, sorry, Ben. So Ben suggested that to leave her in Israel might be even more dangerous than bringing her to Egypt.
The sister may be under the control of
The brother, yeah.
He's the head of that family, and so it's just a matter, can't just take her. They'd have to do negotiations and whatever.
But still, she will be taken.
Right?
Yeah.
No, they don't know that.
They immediately,
Maybe she has a certain status as a sister.
I think she would have been taken, but I understand that there is a little bit more control from the brother. Okay. Now, so that's what the Ramban says. Now, I'll take the Ramban and I want to divide it into 2. One, the recognition of a chet. The Ramban was not afraid to say there was a sin. Bishgaga, obviously he didn't want to endanger Sarah, but there was a sin. The Ramban did not think less about Abraham by saying that what? That he, and by the way, all the censors from the 13th century until today didn't erase it. Did not. It's in everywhere. Even probably in the most Haredi yeshiva, you will have Ramban, and in that Ramban you will open up Perek Yud Bet Pasuk Yud. Don't tell them, but it's there. Chet chata Avraham Avinu bishgaga. So he was not afraid to say it because he understood there was a sin here. A. B. The interpretation itself, the chet that he found, it's not only my opinion, we'll see later on that the other says the same thing. It's questionable. It's questionable because it seems to be that the expectation that Hashem has from Avraham in terms of faith and bitachon is, as we say in Hebrew, bashamayim. It's a little bit too much. It's too lofty. And the third thing is, and this is the third thing, is that in a way, Maaseh Avot, Siman Labanim, is based on what happened to Avraham. Right? Meaning he went to Mitzrayim. So now you want to tell me that this is the reason for what? For going to Mitzrayim. But I thought that the reason was Yosef and the brothers. Right? So you can tell me there's not only one reason. I understand there can be multiple reasons. Yes, same thing. That's what the Ramban wants to show. Mamash echad leechad. Famine, going down, being abused, going out with a tremendous amount of wealth, doing the same thing. So the idea is, so the question is really on the Ramban, is that you try to basically highlight one sin when we know that there are multiple sins. Okay, so that's the Ramban. A different view on what Avraham did or didn't do is in Bereshit Rabbah. In Bereshit Rabbah, which is a Midrash Agada, probably composed בערך 5th or 6th century in Eretz Israel, he says the following: ולאברהם היטיב בעבורה, ויהי לו צאן ובקר, ויצא עליו פרעה אנשים וישלחו אותו. So, the idea of מעשה אבות סימן לבנים is not a Ramban's invention. It's from this Midrash. Because it says here, רבי פנחס בשם רבי יושעיה רבא אמר הקדוש ברוך הוא לאברהם, צא וכבוש הדרך לפני בניך. Go and what? And pave the path for your children. את מוצא שכל מה שכתוב באברהם כתוב בבניו. Everything that it says about Abraham, it's the same thing about his children. באברהם כתיב ויהי רעב בארץ. In reference to Abraham, it says that there was a famine in the land, בישראל כתיב כי זה שנתיים הרעב בקרב הארץ. And when Yaakov was in the land of Israel with his family, it says already it has been 2 years of famine in the land of Israel. כתיב ויהי רעב בארץ בישראל. Okay, באברהם כתיב וירד אברהם מצרים על לגור שם. In reference to Abraham, it says that he went down to Mitzrayim, to Egypt, to dwell there. בישראל כתיב וירדו אבותינו מצרימה. And when it reference to the people of Israel, it says also what? They went down to Mitzrayim. באברהם כתיב לגור שם. Regarding to Abraham, it says לגור, to dwell there. בישראל כתיב לגור בארץ בנו. Okay, so they go one by one to show that everything that happened to Abraham happened to us. I'm skipping this. This is a little bit too much. Meaning it's just a lot. What I want you to look at is basically according to the Midrash, is there any problem with what Abraham did? That's my point. According to the Midrash, any criticism on Abraham? More than just giving the facts. Oh, very good. There is no criticism on Abraham, exactly the opposite. Whatever he did was in a way almost preordained. Because what's the opening statement of the Midrash? Hashem told Abraham what? צא וכבוש הדרך לפני בניך. Go out and pave the path for your children, which means I purposely created famine for you to go down to Egypt, for you to be in danger and to endanger your wife, so I can put plagues on Paro. I don't care if his name was Paro, he was the head of the dynasty and that was his name. And then he's going to experience plagues, and then he will what? He will send you out with tremendous wealth, which means everything that you will go through will be the exact thing that the Jewish people will go through, and that's exactly my plan. Which means he really did not have any choice to do anything. Now, why did I bring this midrash? I brought this midrash to show two things. A, that the Ramban's invention of Maaseh Avot Siman Labanim, it's not his, it's a midrash. But even more so, it's the problem that I have mibchina parshanit from a commentary issue, is that this midrash that coined the idea of Maaseh Avot Siman Labanim does not find any faults in what Avraham did. And the Ramban, despite the fact that he says what? That Maaseh Avot Siman Labanim, he thinks that what? That Avraham chata. Now this is interesting. This is something that I want you to think about until next week, Bezrat Hashem, because next week we will continue. So basically we have a very interesting thing here. The Ramban is going in the same path, but deviates. And basically wants to show you that that Avraham committed a sin. Now, one of the things that I want you to think about is the question that we all grapple with and we have no answers. Many people tried. Yedi'ah ve'bchira. Knowing and the ability to choose, free will. God might know exactly what he wants you to do, but at the same time, you don't know. And you are making choices. And your choices can lead to, at the end, obviously leads to what God planned. So it might be that both can be right. It might. Next week.